Not yet. We'll get there eventually, I'm sure. So this is a weird one because this is actually episode 10, part 2. Okay. Because you and I actually, people that are going to get to watch this don't realize we already did this whole episode once.
But they aren't going to like hear or see any of that, right?
None of it at all. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah.
I don't feel like I'm like repeating myself at all when I answer questions.
No, absolutely. And that's just it, is that, I mean, I could have spent the next 2 months doing sound editing and making it work and matching it up to the video, but
it's like, okay.
This was just easier. I'm just going to be honest with you. As much as how many times we've had to reschedule and work with, because the world kind of went to shit.
Oh God, it was so like dystopian, apocalyptic for a moment. It still is, but like when it really hit, that's when we were scheduled to do our interview for the second time. And I was like, I can't do it, man.
Yeah. Well, and I actually, the day that we had it planned, right after our scheduled time, I actually ended up talking to Malice. And I was like, hey, how are you hanging in there? How are you doing? And she's like, there's military helicopters over my house, and there was an explosion 2 blocks over, and oh my God. And it was crazy. And then right after that, my friend Shelly, who lives just like 2-3 blocks from Alice, she was driving out to the valley. And she made me stay on the phone with her the whole time because she was in just absolute sheer terror.
Terrifying.
Yeah,
terrifying.
Yeah, it's been...
That's like downtown over here. It's like every single store in downtown has been smashed into and looted. Like everything, fucking Apple, Louis Vuitton, CVS, like everything. The entirety of downtown is ruined right now in Portland. It's going to take forever to like revamp it. Yeah,
it's blowing my mind. Like I'm not used to... I mean, I was around. I'm old enough that I remember the riots in '92 in LA, and that it did affect some. But with all the social media and how broadly things are spread now, like it kind of blows my mind how many states, cities. I mean, I started a list here on day 2, and I think I stopped at. Yeah, I've got 41 cities in just the United States. That was on day 2.
Yeah,
and it's grown worldwide. Yeah, it's been absolutely insane, and though in a really, really good way. Like as much as I kind of feel weird saying that, like I'm kind of proud of people for standing up, even as far as it's gone. Like I'm all about protest, but this went beyond, and I'm impressed.
Definitely, like people are out here doing the most.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you're healthy. I'm glad you took part. I mean, there's several times.
Yet again.
That's okay. I found a lemon lime soda under my desk just now, and I'm drinking that because it was convenient.
I'm not drinking alcohol at fucking like 5 p.m. like I am every day since it's quarantine. That's my excuse. I'm like, oh, it's quarantine. It's not a big deal. I can drink Chardonnay starting at 11 a.m. like a fucking Orange County housewife. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Well, I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, everybody's going to come out of this whole quarantine situation being either a really good cook and kind of fat, or a really good home bartender.
That's me, dude. I'm the opposite. I do not know how to cook. I do not care to try. I'm too stressed to eat right now, but I sure do like alcohol.
Well, I mean...
I'm always real. Like, I got no shame in saying it.
Well, you ever seen the show Metalocalypse?
No.
They go shopping, and there's the food groups. There's vegetables, there's meat, there's bread, there's dairy, and the booze group. Booze is a food group. And actually on my Snapchat, I actually put on there lots of times, I'll post like, I'm having a salad and it's a beer.
Yes, I love that. Or like, I'm having grapes and it's fucking wine. Like, same shit. No?
Yeah, it's juice-ish. Yeah. No, like, and people think it's funny because I will go to the bar and I'm like, I'd like a salad light on the water croutons, and they just know I just want a 4 fingers of whiskey neat.
Yes.
They just know that that's what I'm ordering, and I say it's a salad because it's my meal. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Why not?
It is what it is. It works.
Yeah, it's all convenient. So.
My lighting here. There we go.
I like the backdrop. That's a nice effect. It's very good.
Thank you. It's literally like a curtain that I ordered on fucking Amazon just for this, and I put it up with gaffer's tape. I'm like professional as fuck, yo.
Yeah, I like it. I dig it. It gives a definite edge to everything. So, let's get into it. Obviously, we've been friends for. I just went through it, and I was kind of going through messages and emails and things. We really have been talking in one form or another for a long damn time.
Yeah, it's like been longer than like since we talked last time and did our first interview. It's it's been longer than I ever even realized because I have such mad ADHD, and I mean that literally, not like jokingly, but I have such mad ADHD that I honest to God have like a very skewed sense of time. So I don't oftentimes realize how long it's been since something has happened or how long I've been doing something until somebody brings it to my attention. It's
It's
crazy. Like you and I really have been talking since you've known me since the start. Like not entirely the start, but did you know me and were you following me and stuff? But when I was going by my legal name.
yes, that's actually it was right as you made the transition that was right when I started following you.
Okay.
So
I'm wondering. I'm like brainstorming right now, and I'm wondering exactly at what point, like how much you knew. Like the major turning point in my life was 2015. Were you following me then?
no, it was right after that, and as you were making some
Okay.
transitions and stuff.
So you didn't see the real like Britney 2007.
No, I mean you've mentioned it a couple of times, but
Like a very mild point, like a very mild version of that several times, but like the real Britney 2007 was 2015. But anyways, continue.
um,
I'm like relieved you weren't following me during that time. It was so bad.
that's but do you know how many people I've watched go through some of the most horrible shit ever, and now looking back on it, like I'm one of the few because the way my memory works, I'm like, hey, do you remember
Yeah.
when everything sucked and the world exploded in your
Yeah.
face? And they're like, unfortunately,
You know,
yes.
for that's the last interview. You were able to recall so much that I wouldn't even think to look back on unless somebody like reminded me. Like it was fun. It was fun, and I can't wait to do this all over again
Yeah.
right now. These are things like you brought up things that I have not thought to even really. I mean, I reflected on them initially after they first happened, but I never really think to look back and reflect on anymore just because I don't. And when you would bring them up, I was like, holy shit, that did happen, didn't it? Oh my God.
That's kind of
Like,
cool
it
though. Like,
realized that my life was a very, like, eventful, dark comedy.
oh, I like that. I like that a
Yeah.
lot. That actually, yeah, I can live with that. Um, okay, so history on you. For one, we talked about it before. You talk them sometimes in your social media life, but your parents, artists, things like that, they've been very supportive and they're a big part of your life. Let's go. I mean, you're a SoCal girl,
Yeah.
which most people have like a stigma in their mind. Um,
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your hometown and growing up and how it's your version of parenting, because as we get into this, people always assume, daddy issues or there's obviously something wrong with them, and I want to break that stigma before we even get there.
Thank you. Because the way, when I discuss my life and choices I've made and stuff, people would automatically assume that I have like fucking issues with my childhood or like daddy issues or something. So I appreciate you bringing that up beforehand. I grew up in a small city called Murrieta in California, and it's like slightly, or I hope I'm not wrong with this, but I believe it's like in the middle between San Diego and Los Angeles. I moved to LA in my early adulthood. My parents, I have an older brother too, and he's always been very like, um, made like the quote unquote what society would deem to be like the right choices, like has a normal job, a great job, has a wife, a baby, has a great like purchased a house, like all this stuff. I was the wild card. I was the loose fucking cannon. I was the firecracker child. And so I was the one who like no matter I didn't have to have a fucked up childhood to make the choices that I did. Like and I I moved to LA in my early adulthood. I grew up as a teenager having my parents drive me down there pretty often because I began modeling at the age of 15. And uh fuck, where was I going with this? Hold on. I'm, this is my ADHD. This is my ADHD. But yeah, I grew up from a young age going back and forth between my hometown Marietta and Los Angeles for jobs. And when I was when I reached young adulthood, I finally moved to Los Angeles. And so modeling started at the age of 15, ended at the age of 23. I don't know if I really went quite into detail with like in regards to this last time with you, because it isn't something I talk about too often, honestly. But so I was involved in a pretty terrible relationship at the time, at the age of 23. And so this is how I began stripping. I'm pretty sure I didn't tell you this last time. This is how I began stripping. So I, in the middle of the night, ran away I was living with the person at the time. I ran away to Buffalo, New York, in the middle of the night. I took a flight from Los Angeles to Buffalo, New York, where an internet friend that I had never met before drove 2 hours from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, to come pick me up, and I stayed with her during this time. And how that happened, because I'm sure people are going to wonder, is I reached out to her online. This was via like Tumblr back when I had one. And I was like, hey, I'm in a real sticky situation. Like I'm in a really shitty relationship with someone. I couldn't tell her who, because honestly, pretty much everyone knows who he is. I was dating a musician at the time, but I didn't want to tell her who, because I didn't want that to have anything to do with it. So I just told her, I was like, I'm in a really sticky situation. I know this is absolutely random, and I know I'm giving you no detail whatsoever, but I need to get out tonight. If I I searched, and my mother's a flight attendant, so I searched, and so I get free flights, but like the free flights are only domestic. So I knew I couldn't fly to Canada, but I knew the closest place to her was Buffalo, New York. So I was like, if I fly into Buffalo, will you drive a couple hours to come pick me up, and I can stay with you while I save up money to get out of this and get my own place? And so, did I tell you that last time?
No. This is all new information to me completely. I had no idea about any of this.
Yeah, and so she was a stripper. She worked at like a strip club that was kind of next door to where she lived. And I had at this point had like 2 other friends who were strippers as well, so it wasn't foreign to me. But so she was a stripper, and I was like, well, shit, I don't have any sort of way. I was reliant on him at the time. I had no way of making money for myself, so I began stripping. And that's how I saved up money. I stayed with her for like 2-3 weeks, saved up money, went back to LA and got my own place. And I continued to strip. And so when my modeling agency and my manager found out, they cut my contracts. And so that's how I began stripping at age 23. And I've continued since then, and I'm 28 now. No, almost 28. Damn, I really had to think about that. So I've been stripping for... I'm not entirely a veteran, but I've been stripping for a minute. And yeah, I've been stripping ever since. I liked it. It's brought me to a lot of different cities, because that's one of the perks of stripping, is that you can travel and do your job. You can do your job essentially anywhere. So yeah, and then from there, that's the history of how I was brought up, I guess. Damn, I actually really avoided that question if we're really thinking about it.
Yeah, you did.
But shit, I hate it. Okay, so as I was beginning to speak, I thought that your question was like how I started stripping, because that was your first one last time.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I was raised with my parents. My parents, God bless their hearts, they did everything correct that you could possibly imagine a parent doing. My parents did. And so I have no excuse for like, because the stereotype as a stripper is that you had a fucked up childhood or some sort of fucked up shit. My childhood, my young adulthood, my teenage years, they were great. My parents did fucking fantastic. But it was all just... I began to make poor choices as I got older, and ultimately led into choices that changed my life for the better. And once I started stripping, my life became so much more colorful in the best way that I would not take it back for the world. And my parents still support me to this day. It took a minute to really introduce them to it and sort of like kind of get them on board, but they are supportive of me to this day. And so none of what we discussed as far as like poor choices and stuff, because let's be honest here, that's the most fun to talk about.
Yeah.
None none of that has any reflection to do with my parents. They did everything right. I owe them my life. They're still to this day great. Anyways, moving on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that I mean, because I have been following you and we've been having conversations. I mean, our first real in-depth conversation was when you were in Las Vegas in a not
Yes.
great relationship and trying to find work and trying to, well, I need to get a work card and I got to have money to get the work card and now I got to do this. And I remember right after that, you kind of retreated. I remember it was weird. You were hanging out with your family in a mall that I got chased by the cops in for skating once. I
A mall,
recognized there was a mall you were in maybe Riverside. I'm trying to remember where.
possibly.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
just remember going, "Oh crap, I've been there. I know where you are right now," and
I've
talking about that.
definitely been on the other side.
Yeah. Well, and then you're like, "No, sometimes I just need to recharge, and my family does that for me." And I've seen you do that a few times where you just,
That was probably the longest period of time that I went taking a break from social media, just because like I was still processing so much like heavy shit that had happened, and that was also at a time where I didn't have as much of a following as I do now. So now it's somewhat of like, if we're being quite honest here, somewhat of my income, like capitalizing on my social media
yeah,
and just image and t-shirts with my fucking face on it and shit. Like, if we're being completely honest, people are stupid. I hope they don't judge me for this, but yeah, I maintain more of an active presence online because it is very much my income, especially given it's like quarantine right now. Nobody's really working.
right.
But yeah, that was at the time a time where I really took a solid break from social media, and it was likely because I didn't have as much of a following and like it wasn't a big deal back then.
Yeah, you were hitting the reset button, and the thing is like so many people who are in the position that many strippers are. Where I mean, obviously, this is for security purposes, for privacy. You have a name, you have a persona. You are your persona, though. You don't really have a separation between who the character is and you. You're the same person, and it is very public. So
Yeah,
you've got your family who can, oh, let's see what she's up to,
yeah.
and can just jump online. And
But
that,
yeah, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I just feel like that can affect things. And it seems like, to me, just from what I've seen, the people who live the way you do, which is very open and very honest,
Yeah,
and have that support, it works out better in the long run because you don't have to, oh, I can't say that because my mom will see it or my grandma will see it or any of that. If they support you,
yeah,
they respect it more.
yeah. I'm very fortunate in that sense. Like my parents, I know there's some people going around right now that are like screenshotting girls like OnlyFans accounts and like sending it to their parents, like thinking they're making the world a better place by putting an end to somebody's sex work, like trying to embarrass them. My parents know I fucking sell nudes. They know I have an OnlyFans. They know what it is. They know I sell nudes and videos, and they're all for it. Like I mean, obviously, like from a different generation. They're not like, well, they're sort of like, well, if we could have chosen a different route for you, like morally, we know we should, but knowing you based on who you are as a person, this is right where you should be and want to be and are enjoying being. Well, I hope you didn't cut out that part. That sounded really unintelligible. But essentially, my you don't actually, you don't have to cut it out. I don't care. But yeah, my parents know what I do. They know like every single part of it. Obviously, they haven't seen it, but like if somebody has some sort of revenge sent it to them, they'd be like, "Oh, well, I mean, like it's not a surprise by any means." But yeah, I'm fortunate in that sense.
Well, and I don't know. I guess I look at it like my parents. Here's something that I don't talk about a lot. The reason I got into photography, I wanted to be a journalist, like
Yeah,
really
wow.
fucking bad. Like that's what I wanted to be, and of course, I was in high school in the mid '90s. There was a lot going on. I mean, there was so much culture, and it was at the advent, really, of the internet starting to bring that to small towns.
Yeah, and you're
And
like, I want to be a part of that.
yeah, I really did. And then I also, being the way that I think, I was like, newspapers are going to go away, and television is starting to. I mean, I remember watching CNN and watching the real news, and then watching like 2 hours of fluff, and I'm like, that's not news
Yeah,
anymore. That's just
yeah.
TV.
Mm-hmm.
They're filling the space. And I realized I didn't really think I could do that. I was like, I'm not, it's the same thing as going and studying a dead language in college. Like, you're not going to make a living doing this. And I,
Right.
being myself, went, well, I can't really be a journalist or a photojournalist and take myself seriously. I started getting into
Yeah.
restaurants. I did that because I knew I'd never starve. If you work in a
Uh-huh.
restaurant, you can work anywhere in the world and you're not going to starve. And then I started a tattoo apprenticeship. That's what I wanted to do. Then I got the
Yeah.
chance to go be a musician. And I think it's hilarious because I see the meme all the time. But I posted a thing back in 1998. I remember the conversation going to my mom and being, hey, Mom, I think I want to be a musician when I grow up. And she just looked at me and smirked and said, sweetheart, you can't be both. You can't,
Yeah.
you can't grow up and be a musician. And I just laughed. And I still to this day don't really have a grown up job, quote unquote. But I remember it, like, when I got back into photography, it was porn. That's what I got
Yeah.
into, was shooting
That
porn.
was the thing. It was nudes and stuff, and not even just nudes, but like porn.
Yeah, like, I was shooting porn and I was shooting fetish stuff. Like, I lived close enough
Yeah.
to Aspen that people would be like, we'll pay you $500 to come take pictures of my wife stomping on my crotch, or,
Yeah.
pouring.
I love that journey for you.
It was really weird and really extreme, but I couldn't tell anybody because, I mean, this is 2003. I had just gotten divorced, actually, and it was at a time where I couldn't really tell anybody what I was doing because it was so taboo. Now you
Right.
look at what I have on Instagram and you look what I have on Facebook, and people don't realize that's actually really tame compared to
Yeah.
what I mean. And I do still do a lot of. I mean, I have so many friends that are sex workers and strippers and things like that. Like, I love people who are confident. Confidence to me is the
Yeah.
sexiest thing. And so if somebody says, I want to take my clothes off, it's, for me, it's not even a sexual thing, it's a confidence thing.
Yeah.
And that to me
Exactly.
is, and do have people who come to me and that exact same thing where it's like, well, don't you ever feel like if somebody was like mean to you, you could just leak their nudes? I'm like, why would I do that? First of all,
Right.
that's,
It's like I don't care enough to be private about it. Even if my parents weren't okay with it, they would still fucking know because I don't care enough to be private about it.
there you go.
Even like you said, like you knew me when I went by my legal name.
Yeah.
I don't it, like I'm not even secretive about my legal name. Like I will outright tell, mostly just in person, but I will outright tell someone like what my legal name is. And honestly, that name died a long time ago because I chose to go by my stage name like almost permanently. My parents call me my legal name. It's just so everyone knows it's Jordan. My parents call me my legal name, but I don't care to go by it anymore. And even they respect that. Like they will call me that in person. But even my mom, like she hand sewed like a mask for me for quarantine and embroidered the name Sasha on it instead of Jordan because she knows that's mostly what I go by, especially in Portland. She knows nobody knows me here by Jordan, or at least calls me that.
Yeah.
And so it's, yeah, like people expect you or like think that you should be private about certain things, and some of us just don't care. And I feel like that's beautiful.
No, it is absolutely. I remember sending you mail and asking if it was okay if I mailed it to you or if I had to mail it to somebody. You're like, no, it's cool. You can know my address. You're fine. But that's
Yeah.
something you for a security thing you have to. But you've always just lived the name. You live who you are.
Yeah.
My friend Jasmine, her name is not Jasmine, and the only time that even her own mother doesn't call her Jasmine is when she's doing something stupid and then her real name comes out. It's like the 3-name thing where the middle name pops out and you're like, shit, she's in trouble.
It's like mine. It's like my parents. If I hear them yell like Jordan, Alexa, I'm like, oh shit, like I fucked up.
Yeah, like
Some.
yeah, and that's exactly it. But I introduce most of my friends by their stage names and I have friends who are musicians that the name everybody knows is not their name.
Yeah.
I know them. I've known them long enough. I mean, Mixie's a great example. I have to actually stop and remember that Mixie is not her name from Sister
Right.
Part. I forget that
Yeah.
because she's been living that persona for so long. It's just a part of
Exactly.
who we are. And I mean, I go by 3 or 4 different names depending on what part of the country I'm in or if I'm at a tattoo parlor or I'm at a convention or I'm taking photos. That's going to determine what my name is.
Exactly.
So, but
My legal name, pretty much, I let it die when I left for safety reasons, I pretty much let it die when I left the musician that I sort of like needed to get a new fresh start from just mentally. And honestly, like I don't he knows who I am now. He knows what I go by. But yeah, that's when my real name died. It was for safety reasons, and not just safety reasons, but like I kind of just didn't like Jordan, if we're being quite honest here. Like I handpicked my name. A friend suggested it, Sasha, and then was like, when I was building an Instagram, was like, oh, what should your username or be, whatever. And I was like, what would sound honestly, this is where it came from. Like, what would sound cool? Oh, Saint Sasha, Saint Sasha. And so that sort of became my like name. Obviously, people in person just call me Sasha, but like that's how that sort of became my name. And I just rolled with it. Like, I'm sure I didn't even necessarily need to, even for safety reasons, to go by a separate name, like an alias. It's just I chose to because I was like, after him, I just didn't want anything to do with that life anymore at all. Like myself, like modeling anything, I wanted that to die when I became like a stripper and because almost when I started stripping, I became a new person. And I don't mean that by any means like a fake way. It's just I evolved.
Well, and that's, and that's the thing. Like, people don't understand that a lot of people that I've come across, and actually even more so with male dancers, when you take on that persona, you take on that character, it's as much a release and an opening up of yourself. It's almost like drastically centering yourself in a new way, and it's freeing. It's emotionally freeing and mentally freeing, and I see that a ton where people just like, yeah, I am the person that I became because that's who I really want to be.
Yeah. Like I've had friends from high school, usually male, find my Instagram and hit me up, and they've been respectful enough to say like, hey, like I don't like I wanted to say like, hey, I'm glad to see you're doing well and stuff. Like, is it weird if I call you Jordan? Like, do you prefer to be called by Sasha? And every single one, I mean, I say that as if there's many, there's only like 3, but every single one has asked that. And I'm like, fuck it. Thank you, dude, for respecting that. And I always say, like, they can call me Jordan because they knew me back when I was Jordan. But I just love when people ask me, they're like, do you want me to call you by this name now? Like, is that cool?
Can you imagine being like Sting? Or Prince?
No, and I'm sure it would be like the complete opposite too. If someone from high school hit me up and was like, "Hey, Jordan," blah blah blah, I'd be like, "It's Sasha to you." No, I'm just kidding. No, I wouldn't be that much of an asshole, but I know I wouldn't want them to call me Jordan as much just because like they originally knew me by that name and didn't ask any further as to whether I like preference as far as name goes. I would probably be more like adamant about them calling me Sasha just out of spite.
I think that's kind of awesome. Like, like, oh, I'll learn you.
Right.
That's well, and that's the other thing is that you live a very public life, and
I do. I am not. Whether it's a relationship I am in or what, I'm very public because, and honestly, it backfires sometimes. I wouldn't say often because for the most part, people I believe kind of appreciate it, or at least that's what sort of comes off to me. Yeah. But I am very public, honestly, because I'm just too lazy to be secretive. I have no motivation. Like, I already became what my alias is. Like, that's who I am as a person now. I don't care enough. I don't give a shit enough. I don't have the patience to fake anything. I really don't. I'm like, if you notice, like, all the photos I post are like I'm trying to be sexy or like slutty or some shit. But like, if you notice, my stories are always just very much like a stripper reality show. Like, I'm like, I don't care what I look like. I don't care if people see me being goofy or whatever. I think that's hilarious. Like, I love that. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to throw people off or throw them for a curve. Like, looking at my photos, you wouldn't expect the shit that's on my story. Usually.
Yeah. No, well, yes and no. I mean, there's a sort of a sense of reality of when you do I mean, because let's be honest, you do some goofy shit. I mean, you do.
I do. I pride myself on that. Holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, your life in many ways, it just day to day. Like the other night was killing me when you were yelling for your girlfriend from the other room. I was dying. She's like, no.
That's my roommate. That's my roommate.
Okay, well, sorry, your roommate. You were just like yelling. She's like, no, come here, no, and I was just dying laughing. I was just like, and you're like, fine, I'm coming there then. And it's like, that's real shit. That's something that you see your friends do and things like that. And for whatever reason, we have elevated celebrity and social media and these things to such a level.
Very curated.
Yeah, it's like people don't realize that there's a real life there.
Too, and I do want people to know also that like when I do that, when I post videos of me bugging a friend saying, come here, take a picture with me, fucking get in my video, come here, and I end up posting it, I do want people to know that I get there okay. Like, for the most part, friends these days, like, especially my roommate and stuff, they know when I'm saying that from another room that I'm likely recording.
Yeah.
Because I'm not actually like that. I'm not, like, without my phone just normally, like, come here, please, fucking give me attention. They know I'm likely recording, but I always, no matter what, will get their permission to post it before. I don't want people to like, yes, it is funny, but I don't want people to think that I'm, like, recording people against their will and just posting it on social media to get, like, any sort of, you know what I mean?
No,
like,
well, 9 times out of 10, you're tagging the people. You tag them and you include them, and they do play along. You see a lot of that, and that's what, like, I think it's hilarious because all of my friends panic when I accidentally show up in a snap or something. They're like, "Oh God, we need to retake that. Erica's in the back. We can't post that."
People, especially people that have more of like because my Instagram, my social media, let's be honest here, it's not very curated whatsoever. It's very much a reality show, and I love that. But the thing that I love the most about me posting wild stories and just funny stories and annoying stories with people like that is that typically they're a person that has a very curated social media, and like not in a bad way, just in a professional way.
Mm-hmm.
And so people who follow them ultimately end up following me and get to see like a funnier side of them, which I like. Like, you know, my roommate, yes. And like my roommate, she won't care if I mention her. Like, everyone knows she's my roommate. Her name is Axel. And like she knows that I constantly am just trying to act annoying and stuff for videos. Not constantly, but usually when I'm acting annoying, she knows it's because I'm recording.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll play along with it, and it is something fun for both of us. Like, it's just, if you notice, like, in all of my stories and stuff, her character is, like, being annoyed with me and, like, fucking stop recording and, like, stuff like that. And, like, her character, if you notice, is very much, like, I don't know if you've noticed that, but her character is very much being annoyed with me when we're actually, like, best friends.
You guys are like Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, we're like Tom and fucking Jerry, dude, aside from, like... I'm with her like on the same level as I am with Malice, who's like my best friend. Like we're very much like, her character on my stories and my Instagram is being annoyed with me, but like we really like hit it the fuck off. Like, we're really close. That's
the shit that matters. I mean, in all honesty, that's what matters, because it gives you the opportunity to be real and show that other side. And that's why, like, do you watch the shit with like, people do this on Twitter all the time, where they just blast spouses, where it's just this constant Twitter war?
No, people do. Send it to me. I want to see that shit.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite shit.
You know what? Malice follows someone that does that on Snapchat, and she shows them to me, and they wouldn't mind if she showed them to me. They post it public. But it's fucking hilarious. But yes, it's this dude who like lives on a farm and blasts like how much his wife hates him and yells at him, and it's fucking hilarious. Like, so yes, I do know of it, but honestly, I didn't know it was like a thing.
It is becoming more and more a thing, and even like there are some celebrities that do it, and I think it's really, to me, it's really kind of, because when you deal with people and there's that smaller degree of separation, when you get to a certain level of call it success, the world gets smaller. it's a lot easier to go, I can make 2 phone calls and talk to this person that I've always wanted to talk to, versus when you're like sitting at home watching a movie and going, man, I would kill to meet this person. They're like my idol.
Right.
And then you interview their roommate or something and you're like, oh shit, like I could actually talk to them. And it's happened to me a few times. I've been very, very blessed in that situation. And you end up getting the real part of them. So
yes.
I love that shit.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like interviewing me is much less of a mystery because I am so like out there about my life. But that's so hilarious.
Yeah, I just think that's the kind of stuff that makes for, because social media is, let's be real, social media is like 90% bullshit. It's utter bullshit.
Oh, totally.
It's
and I will straight up, I will be the first bitch to admit right here that I airbrush all my photos, like fucking Facetune. That shit's amazing. And I don't even care to like admit it. I don't care that I'm admitting it, because people who are going to watch this video, and I'm sure I'm going to promote it to my followers as well, they're going to see what I actually look like. Like actually I kind of do like airbrush. I'm wearing a lot of fucking makeup, but like, I'm airbrushing my photos and shit, and like it's hilarious that just like Instagram, mind you, mine is a lot less like quote unquote fake. It really is, just because I'm so real on there. But a lot of people don't understand, like even the realest people are still doing some sort of shit. Like,
well, absolutely. Like I tell everybody, like if you want to get to know me, you got to follow me on Snapchat, because I'll post like my dinner or the stupid shit. Like I scared the fuck out of myself last week. Like bad. Yeah. And it happened to be on tape that it happened, and I shared it because I was like, oh God, I don't get startled. Usually I'm the scary thing in the room. Yeah. And so when I get startled, it's usually pretty bad. That's very real. But if you wanna talk about me pissed off or just my political views, follow me on Twitter, because I don't get censored. I don't get shut down on Twitter. You want to follow my professional careers, follow one of my Instagram accounts.
Right. I'm pretty much just like who I am on Instagram. Yeah. And that's why I get so much deleted and like reported, and I've my entire profile has been deleted one time, and I was fortunate enough to have a friend get it back for me. But like it's not my Twitter, it's not my Facebook, it's not a Tumblr that I don't even have anymore. It's my Instagram. Like I am too real on there, to the point where like sometimes I do get backlash on certain things, but honestly I don't give a fuck. Like sometimes I learn from it, and I realize like, okay, what I did or said was like kind of fucked up. Like I learned from it, but my point is I don't mind making mistakes in front of like 20,000 people. I don't give a fuck.
Well, but let's look at it realistically. Is it actually a mistake? Because if you're getting backlash from say a dozen people over something they didn't like I've been watching so many people here recently over everything that's happened, not just in the last 2 weeks, but in the last 3 or 4 months. You watch people who are like, man, I'm losing followers.
Yeah.
Why do you need... Life is not measured in likes and follows.
Exactly.
It's not. Social media is a great marketing tool. I mean, I use the fuck out of it. You use the fuck out of it. So many people do. But do we really give a fuck, that somebody, went and had this dinner or had that drink or posted this? I mean, I remember when Instagram went down years ago, I laughed my ass off because I was in the studio recording with Trevor O'Connor, and Instagram went down, just crashed. And he just very solemnly
I remember that.
Yeah, like done. Like there was no Instagram, nothing worked, the websites didn't work, the app didn't work, nothing. And he looked at me and totally deadpan, and I could see it in his eyes how he had it was like his moment had come, and he's like, if Instagram's not working, what the fuck are we going to know what to eat for lunch?
Right, no shit, dude. Fuck, for real though.
And I lost my shit. It was so, because that's...
It goes down, and some people are like, how am I going to use my legs to walk today? Holy shit, dude.
Right. And my favorite time to be on Twitter is from like 11:30 Mountain till like 4 o'clock Mountain. Because that's the time when everybody in the East Coast, they're going home from the bars drunk as shit. And then their after effects and what they're making in midnight munchies. And then you start to catch, by the time that starts to ebb out, you got everybody in the Pacific Coast. They're starting to get into it. So I literally have like 6 hours of watching people. Twitter becomes so much word vomit. People just randomly post shit that they would never say.
I fucking get off on that shit. I'm like, yes, say everything you might possibly regret later. This is what I want to hear.
Exactly. And I just sit there and I just laugh. I just scroll through Twitter and laugh my ass off and talk shit and make fun of people, screenshot a lot because I know that they're going to wake up in the morning and be like, oh, fuck, and they delete it. Not on my watch.
I've totally been that person before. I've 100% been that person before. I ain't gonna lie, but like, you know what? That's being human. Fuck it. I don't care.
See, that's the fun shit. And you can't get away with that on Facebook. You can't get away with that on even on Instagram because it's so policed and it's so...
Oh, I definitely, especially recently with like the protests and stuff going on, I've definitely like, I've gotten backlash on some sort of things, and like, just so people know, like, I am actually going to have to probably delve into that a little bit just so people aren't like really like, oh, this bitch is questionable. But I've gotten backlash on a few things, and then like, I'll never really delete it, but I will post videos or like a photo with a caption like admitting like, hey, like, I've gotten a lot of backlash for this, and it's really made me realize that what I did or said kind of like wasn't correct by any means, and I want you to know that like now I'm doing this or whatever. But here's the thing. Can I give a quick example?
Absolutely.
Okay, so like with the recent protests going on and stuff, I initially was not posting about any of it. And that reason being, this is before any of the issues really blew up. It was just sort of heard here and there, like in different articles. And so I posted videos I got several messages from people asking like, why aren't you posting about this? Why aren't you promoting like this or that? And my reason being was that like, dude, it's fucking quarantine. My only job that I have right now, my only job is what I can capitalize on online, is social media. That's the only income I have. I'm not going to rock the boat by discussing politics on when people follow me for like funny stories and stuff and like slutty selfies. And like, I'm not going to rock the boat in my income by discussing politics. Like, that's just absolute, as far as income goes and surviving for myself and paying my rent and my bills, that is absolute stupidity.
Right.
I got so much backlash on it, so much backlash, and people were like, yeah, but like, this is bigger than that, like, this movement is bigger than that, you should be posting, supporting it and stuff. And I finally was like, okay, you know what, so many people have messaged me about this, maybe they're right, and I'm just being selfish. Honestly, in my opinion, I will outright say I still don't believe I was being selfish. I'm very much a fucking anarchist, dude, and I'm like, we all need to survive somehow. But so many people reached out and said that I should use my platform, since it is somewhat large, for the greater good and post about it. So I did. I then did. And then I got backlash from those same fucking people saying this is performance activism and you're just posting it because you got called out and you don't actually mean it and stuff. Meanwhile, I was like, first of all, let's just start with this. What the fuck do you want from me? If I'm no matter what I fucking do, I'm incorrect somehow. But like, no, what people about, like, in regards to this issue, what people don't realize is that every night I was going to the protests. My roommate drives like a very large van. We were going and picking up people who got gassed and driving them home and trying to help people and dumping like milk of magnesium. I think that's what it's called. Like on their eyes, like fucking helping people every single night. That I didn't post about it. And these people are saying like, you're not doing enough. You're not posting enough. And I'm like, you cannot judge people based on their social media and decide whether or not they are doing enough as far as activism goes. You can't do that because you don't really fucking know.
Yeah, unless you're right there.
I wanted to say that. I had to say that on a video fucking interview, dude, because it is absolutely batshit, and I think it is absolute repulsive stupidity when somebody judges somebody based on their social media and say that it's not good enough when they don't know what they're doing. Anyways, that old chestnut. Let's go ahead and move on.
Yeah. Well, no, we're not going to just move on because that's actually that's actually like an amazing point, because I've watched a lot of these, especially brands that have a certain marketing skew, or they have a certain a niche that they fill. And watching some of them choose to be silent and some choose to react certain ways, like there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of things that people don't get, like franchises.
So much misinformation. And a lot of times people who are doing the absolute most online with their social media in regards to like promoting the movement and stuff aren't doing shit in real life.
Right.
Like, you don't really know. Like, shut the fuck up. Sorry, pardon my French, but shut the fuck up.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is, like, this is years ago. I had a girl who was a model, very well-known model. She was getting a lot of notoriety. She was starting to really blow up in big ways. And she would go out and feed the homeless, but only if there were cameras around. Only if she could, like...
I mean, mind you, I can't hate on that because my logic is at least she was still doing it. That's where my logic is.
But it was like a planned thing, and it was...
I get it. That is, in a sense, performance activism, but she's still doing it at the end of the day.
And that's the thing. Is like, well, I can't knock her for doing it because at least she's going out. She's not lying, but she is doing it for... She's doing it for the gram.
Yeah.
And that's not effective. And a lot of brands have done that recently, and it does bother me. There are brands that I have just personally had issues with that I don't work with. I just choose either, like, if somebody's like, hey, tag them. Nope. I'm not gonna. I don't support that company. Right. I don't, I don't fucking eat Chick-fil-A. I don't like that fucking company. I don't eat Chick-fil-A. Period.
Yeah. Like, hey, dude, you couldn't pay me to like fucking Chick-fil-A. I'm like, hell no, you hate my people.
And like, I have an issue.
Get me to promote Chick-fil-A.
Right. And I hate going to Hobby Lobby, so I very deliberately go. Usually I take a couple of gay friends. I bless Skyler because when he goes with me, he just knows I'm probably going to hold his hand.
Right.
I mean,
don't get me wrong. I will straight up admit right now, because I don't like being fake. I will absolutely, this is terrible. If I'm in the mood for it, I will eat Chick-fil-A. But here's the thing. People can't shit on that because my social media platform is more powerful than me spending $5 on a chicken sandwich. So I will absolutely eat Chick-fil-A if I'm fucking hungry and it's right there and it sounds good. But I'm not going to promote it and try to... Because promotion is influence. Right. By promoting, you're essentially just trying to influence people to purchase something. And I'm not by any means going to promote and influence 20,000 people to eat fucking Chick-fil-A when they hate gays. Like, I'll eat it here and there, but you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is $5? But, like, I sure won't promote it to thousands of people. Yeah. So people don't see the difference. Like, honestly, the story of my life would probably be someone catching me eating at fucking Chick-fil-A and posting it, but at the same time me getting reamed because I'm eating Chick-fil-A and at the same time saying I don't promote it. People need to know the difference.
And that right there is the biggest issue that I see in media versus social media versus reality. I mean, the reality of most of these situations, people don't even understand.
And I'm sure I'll get hate for that too. I'm sure I'll get hate for saying that. But like, this is me. Nobody's forcing you to follow me.
There you go. And that's the other side of it is that you look at a lot of artists and a lot of musicians now. Like, there's so much out there that it's hard to determine what the bullshit is versus what the reality is. And there are people who are actually the pieces of shit you think they are. There are people who are actually great people.
A better direction that I'm actually siding with. Continue, please. I'm sorry. I'm interested, but I like this more now. Continue.
Okay. So you have people that are out there boycotting or out there yelling at somebody, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't be this person. And they don't know the reality. So they'll take the made up, I'm upset because you represent this as fact, when sometimes the reality is 10 times worse. Who somebody is, I mean, being racist, being misogynistic, being controlling. I mean, there's a million different things that can go into that. That still allows people to capitalize on, it's easier today. They say no press is bad press. It's easier today to do something really fucked up and make money off of it.
Yeah.
Than it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago, because so many people have lost the bullshit filter and they don't understand the difference between this is reality, this is the personification, the paradigm we're creating, and then here's what you're really being told. Everything is cut into a little box, and you just kind of, for whatever reason, you're just told this is how it has to be.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind that people they get spoon-fed shit. You look, okay, and I talked to Skylar about this on the last episode. We were talking about the fact there are so many people that, honest to God, believe COVID-19 exists because pedophiles were eating babies.
I mean, listen, there's a lot that I know about that, like, things like certain conspiracies are very much a thing that people aren't looking much into, but COVID and pedophilia is not one of them. It's not, at least in my personal opinion, in my personal theory, COVID does not at all tie in with fucking pedophilia. Like, I know a thing or two about, like, what powerful people are fucking into and sick shit, but, like, it has nothing to do with fucking COVID.
Right. But that's what people are doing.
I'm not saying, like, COVID isn't, like, something much larger. Like, there isn't a much larger sort of thing going on behind it, but, like, the two are not, like, I keep saying like so much. The two, I give up on that statement. Anyways, continue.
Well, no, I mean, and that's the thing, is like, there's so many people that believe that shit. They believe that this is the okay, I'm gonna say it. I don't ever say this. I never say this in public. I've never gone out and just brutally said this. I am so abhorrently astonished at how our government has handled the entire situation from start to finish. I've never been a Trump supporter. I've always been really public about the fact that I'm not. But
they definitely fucking blew. Let's be honest here. They blew, and anybody who doesn't, like, somewhat believe this, I don't give a shit what they think. COVID was absolutely blown way the fuck out of proportion in America. Like, if not every other country, but it was just like, it was not, like, I have a family member who wrote their senior thesis, who's a biochemist, wrote their senior thesis on coronavirus over a decade ago. It existed over a decade ago.
Yeah, I mean,
and it was not what it is now.
Well, there's so many different kinds that people don't pay attention to. Yeah, like,
it's just people don't get it.
They don't understand it. And is it serious? Yes. Is it something to be dealing with? Yes. But is it something new? Is it no? And I had somebody, and this is what I say. Like, I never say this. I legitimately not only unfollowed the person, I never plan on speaking to this man again. Because he actually believes that Donald Trump is the Messiah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Come on now.
I'm not kidding. He actually believes this. And it's infuriating. It's like, how can you make that correlation? And he's saying, well, there's pestilence and there's this and there's that, and you watch, he's going to save the world. And
people are like, all of this is just so people. I'm not generalizing this. I'm not saying every person is a sheep. But a lot of people are fucking sheep. A lot of people are hopping on the bandwagon that, like, now there's fluoride in water and we're all gonna fucking die. There's always been fluoride in tap water. Like, also just some outbreak about, like, apparently Axel just told me, like, fucking E. coli has broken out and people are treating that like it's COVID now. I'm like, this is not a new thing. Do you not realize that?
Yeah, and people don't realize that because there's so much misinformation and there's so much.
And the media is so curated. We believe, the majority of people believe what they're told, and what they're told is the media, which is carefully curated and absolutely can be bought out. I don't care what anyone says. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I know for a fact, based on other people I've known and other people I've dated, that is absolutely for fucking sure.
No, absolutely. Mic drop.
I'm gonna be like, this is gonna be like the most obnoxious video on the internet. It's like, say Sasha fucking bullshitting about a bunch of not bullshitting, but like just fucking going off about shit that's an unpopular opinion. Fucking kill me.
No, that's what it's supposed to be. That's the whole point. Is that's why we call it nonsense, because it's. I'd rather people speak truth, speak from their heart, and speak what they're actually meaning, because
Right.
it provides for a way better.
I can't wait to promote this video on my Instagram and lose like 4,000 followers for not just thinking shit. You see the edge of my fucking living room wall. Anyways, you don't need to cut that out. I don't give a fuck.
That's gonna be
reality.
That's gonna be the little tab on YouTube.
Just so everyone knows, this is a sheet that I bought off Amazon. First of all, fuck Jeff Bezos. But yes, I do still buy off Amazon. Sue me. This is a sheet that I taped up with gaffer's tape on the wall.
It's kind of fantastic. I love it. Okay, now let's take this even further. Now, you are an artist.
Yes.
I mean, a fine artist. Like I bought your art, so you are an artist.
Not a lot of people know that, but thank you.
No, and that's the thing. Like, you used to spend more time promoting some of that, and used to have that, and that is the one aspect. Every once in a while in your story, you'll be painting or doing something, and you now have started. I mean, your makeup work is fantastic.
Thank you so much.
And you've made the transition, especially now with, I mean, strip clubs being being closed, and you already making that transition to being a makeup artist and doing things.
I actually quit stripping a month prior to quarantine happening just to solely do makeup, and not a lot of people know that.
Yeah, exactly. You were like, I'm going to do this. There's a risk in that. There's a level of honesty of, okay, let's be real, like you as a teenager got to live kind of that literal dream a lot of women have of being a model and getting paid to be pretty and travel and do all these things.
And I didn't for 1 second take it for granted. I knew how lucky I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to make that known. Continue.
Yeah. So you have that, and then now you have this, like, let's call it starving artist situation where the economy is shot. You do have to rely on social media. That's even more, in my mind, it makes it more important to be real, because it's not just a livelihood, it is your actual life.
Right.
So in doing makeup and doing these things, how much do you feel that social media has affected a sense of true professionalism? Like, people talk about Generation Z and Generation X and all these. Fuck that. Yeah. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you and your experience. How much harder is it to be taken seriously as a sex worker versus being an artist versus being just the person that you are? How much differently do you see it? How much more difficult do you see it trying to market being just, I'm pretty, I'm an exhibitionist, whatever, versus this is my real life versus this is my job? Like, how do you tie those together?
So as far as tying all of it together, the reality of the situation is that I don't try. And I feel like that's part of my appeal on like a social media or like a public level, whatever you want to call it. The reality of the situation is that I don't try to tie them all together. I just show everything literally on my social media, and it happens to work for me. At least as far as I'm concerned. Like, it just happens to work for me. Like, people know, okay, so when I was a model, I had a completely separate Instagram that was my real name, my at the time work name, which is obviously, like, I have a completely separate name now that is my now work name, but at the time was my work name and stuff. And that was the only real major transition I made publicly, was going from like model to stripper. And I gave it a break. Like, after I deleted my Jordan Instagram, like, I don't need to say my last name, but honestly, I'm at the same point realistically where if people find it, I don't really give a fuck. But my Jordan, I don't care, dude. My Jordan Instagram, I gave it a break after deleting that when I first began stripping, just to give myself, my life, that sort of transition and adjust into it. And then I eventually made a strippergram, which was Saint Sasha. And it took off like a lot better than my model one, because like, although I was a model, and that was my, it wasn't like a hobby, like that was my sole job. That's what paid my rent. I was living comfortably and stuff. Although I was a model, I wasn't one with a huge following. I was by no means like a big one. I was never by any means like a famous one. I got hella jobs and was doing great and had like, I was probably living much more comfortably than I do now, but I wasn't like well known by any means. And when I began stripping, it's sort of, although I haven't made as much entirely or anything, it has become more public and more. I've developed much more of a following stripping than I ever did modeling. And anyways, I forget where the fuck that question was going.
To lead that on, like this time.
Did I say that at all?
Yeah, no, you did, and that's the thing. Like what I'm looking at now is like you nailed it, and that's what I loved. Is it got to lead into my next question. You aren't taking that break this time. You aren't having to step back and go, okay, I need to reset.
Stripper to makeup artist.
Yeah, you haven't, and I accredit a lot of that to your mental health and how much you've really pushed that. So you have been in many ways, in many instances, a huge advocate, and really you've been so open about your mental health and the issues you've had. I know that one of the things that I learned very early on about you is that you know a very famous author who has developed into what has become a huge sensation on Netflix and I mean, I want you to talk a little bit about that, and I want you to really talk about, you used to write these essays and articles and things and really contribute to mental health. That's something that you've continued to do, albeit a little more quietly. You still are doing that, and you're doing it more as, this is me, watch me go through it.
Yes. So occasionally, just for people who aren't already aware, I was diagnosed bipolar 2 at the age of 15. Just to further explain that, there are like 3 levels of it. There's cyclothymia, which is the mildest form of bipolar disorder. There's bipolar 2, which is like the middle ground. And then there's bipolar 1, which is like a little bit more of the intense, like rapid cycling. For people who are wondering how I know this, I actually used to go to college and major in abnormal psychology. But I used to, more so in the past, publish articles about mental health, mental illness especially, and I read a book when I was much younger. Many people know what it's called now, 13 Reasons Why. I read it before it was really popular, and it meant so much to me and really resonated with me on such a deep level that I can totally say this, he's gonna laugh about it, but I totally on a stalker level searched the author on fucking Facebook, because I was like, I need to reach this guy somehow and let him know like what his book has fucking done to me. And so I found him on Facebook and wrote him a long ass fucking novel of a message saying, hey, your book, and I first also want to preface this with, a lot of people who haven't read the book and just saw the TV show, like, it's very controversial to a lot of people, but you just honestly got to read the book, like the OG. And I wrote to him talking in depth about how much it affected me and everything, and how much I really appreciated it and how much of an impact it made on me. And he wrote back. And I told him, I had mentioned what I was going through at the time and how I was recently diagnosed and I was kind of suffering and stuff. And I never expected a response. I just kind of I figured somebody who went through all the trouble and effort of making that book deserved to know that it was having such an impact on at least one life minimum. And he ended up writing back and saying, I don't recall entirely what he said, but basically we've been talking for years. I was 15 at the time. I'm now 28. And he was always so down to earth and just very real with me. And literally, if you at all ever go through that, what, you know what I mean? You can always reach out to me. I'm here for you. Those issues are very real to me. That's why I wrote about them. And so we finally, I guess our first initial meet was, dude, my life branches out in so many weird ways. So our first initial meet was, I used to be friends with, so everyone knows Chelsea Handler, the comedian. I used to be friends, still am friends. I shouldn't say used to. I just first became friends with her brother some years ago. It's been a while. Her brother, and so I would always get into the show back when she had her show Chelsea Lately. I used to get into it for free and stuff, and I would go all the time for fun. And so he was coming to LA, Jay Asher, the author. And I was like, hey, like, this was some years later after we had been talking online. And I was like, hey, I would really love to meet you and stuff. If you want, like, we can meet up in LA and I'll get you into the show and we can, like, hang out there and it would be great. And so we met up and we went to the show and stuff. He had a great time. I had a great time. And we've just been homies ever since after that. And I'm almost 28 now. And he's always been there for me no matter what I'm going through. And he's never been anything less than just an absolute, like, incandescent friend to me. You know what I mean? Like, always been there. And we're the type of friends that, like, we'll go so long without talking. But when we do, if it's about some real shit, like, we're there. And that's probably one of the relationships in my life that hasn't always been, like, the most active as far as us talking and stuff, but it's definitely made a difference and contributed a lot to what has shaped me as a person mentally.
No, and I know, just because I've been there through your struggle, I mean, there's been times where you are so open and you are so willing to talk about what people go through that you yourself have become kind of that advocate for so many other people. And I mean, you and I've talked about the idea of, like, a psychologist versus a psychiatrist, and the pros and cons of therapy versus medication versus the combination of the two. And I guess if you were to give advice to somebody who was 15 or 20 or 25, or even if you could give yourself advice at those ages, what would you tell yourself regarding specifically, like, how to handle mental health and the trials and tribulations you yourself have gone through?
So this is a big one. My mental illness journey began at probably most prominently, like, it was very, in the words of a movie I saw called Prozac Nation, which actually isn't in the words of Prozac Nation. It was a quote that they quoted from a book. But my depression hit gradually yet suddenly. And it began at the age of 15. Like, that's when it really hit and, like, hit me like a train. And I was very fortunate in the sense where, like, at this point in my life, it wouldn't matter what advice I really gave myself back then, because at 15, you can only do as much as your parents or guardians allow as far as taking action with your mental health. And my parents, I was very fortunate enough for them to realize, so mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, runs in my family. And I told my parents very early on that I wasn't, like, I'm sorry if I tear up.
You're allowed.
I wasn't about life anymore, dude. At the age of 50, I was 15 years old, and I felt like I was 80 and dead inside. And I told my parents, and they took it seriously right away, and they took me they made an appointment for me with a psychiatrist and a psychologist. For people who don't know the difference, a psychologist is more of like a talk it out therapist, and a psychiatrist is somebody who can prescribe you medication and can do, like, testing and I don't know the proper terminology, but, like, brain scans and stuff. And so my parents made appointments with both. And I was then diagnosed with bipolar 2. And honestly, like, for the most part, I would say, and people, I don't want anyone to follow this for themselves because everything applies to people in different ways. If it works for you, that's great. It did not work for me. But I did not continue my treatment with psychotherapy, which is therapy, like talk it out therapy. I did not continue my treatment with that because I felt like I was very self-aware. I still try to maintain that self-awareness. I was very self-aware. I knew what my problems were. I didn't need someone to explain it to me other than just initially being diagnosed. I knew what my problems were in life, who I was dealing with, what was going on, what my underlying issues were, where I was faulting, what my toxic traits were. I knew all of that. I didn't need somebody to tell me. And so what I felt like therapy or psychotherapy did was just you're bouncing off a wall there, like you're telling them something and you're telling them about your life, discussing it, and sort of hoping that they can either validate things or guide you through other things. And I felt like I did not need that. And honestly, to this day, from the age of 15, I'm now almost 28, I still believe I personally, on a personal level, did not need that. And so I did continue psychiatry, which was my psychiatrist. Okay, so the psychiatric sort of like community gets a bad rep because there are so many psychiatrists who will just see you for 10 minutes and like be like, yo, what's up, how you been doing, and throw some meds at you and send you on your way, which is horrible. That's horrible. And that's why the psychiatric community, I think, gets such a bad rep, because that is unfortunately very common. However, I believe that is only common because at least when I was going through it, or when many people now go through it, the psychiatric community, for the most part, like psychiatrists, are from older generations. I firmly believe, based on what I was taught in college and stuff, going for psychology, that millennials and just in general younger generations than who are currently psychiatrists will be much better. Because we're taught more, we're taught better things. I in college was taught to fucking give a shit before I prescribe anyone a pill. And so although I was a bit discouraged by my initial search for psychiatrists, I found a website that I totally don't mind plugging here because it's worth it, called healthgrades.com. And I searched on there. You can search for psychiatrists in your area, and it has their rating that people can rate them for, like 5 stars or whatever. And people can write out ratings, and it says it can list whether or not they take your insurance or not. It's great. It's fantastic. It's a very useful tool. And so I ended up finding on there like one of the best psychiatrists I've ever had. And they now don't just see me for like, this psychiatrist that I found off of that website doesn't see me for just 10 minutes and ask like what the fuck is up and then throw me on my way with some pills. She actually sees me for a full-blown hour and works also as a psychotherapist, like bouncing ideas and like stuff off of me back and forth, and validates things that I am doing correctly and corrects and tries to guide me in directions where I'm kind of fucking up. And then also prescribes me medications based on all of that. Like, she keeps up with it. If I need a phone call with her, like an emergency phone call with her, she'll absolutely like answer, which like I don't even have to pay her for. Like, she just is excellent at doing her job. And so my advice to somebody at this point would just be like, you know what I mean? Like, especially when you reach the point mentally, as far as illness goes, when you reach the point of like, fuck it, dude, I want to die. I just want to fucking die. What else? Like, you have nothing to lose if you, like, just go see a fucking doctor. If you've never seen one before and like that's your mindset, what do you have to lose by going to see a fucking doctor? Like, you already are at rock bottom. What do you have to lose to try to get better? Like, and that's why oftentimes I don't understand too, people who are against medication but yet are suffering so badly. I'm like, literally, you want to die right now. What do you have to lose but to try fucking medication? And if you don't mind, do I have time to delve a little bit deeper into medication?
I have as much time as you want.
All right. I love that shit. I love this for us. So the process of medicating a patient is oftentimes very misconstrued as well, and has like a bad rep, and it's very much like I wouldn't say stereotype, but like very much a bad rep. And people don't understand that back in the day, like the old OG like diagnostics manual of the psychiatric community just stated like ideas and essentially just ideas and theories. And nowadays we're on the DSM-5, the Diagnostics Manual of the Psychiatric Association 5, the 5th issue, and it kind of discusses more like different illnesses and what parts of the brain they affect on a factual level based on scans and stuff that I've gone through and everything. And for example, people assume oftentimes, like my reason delving into this is because people oftentimes assume that mental illness is just like an idea. Like it's just like, oh, well, why don't you just fucking exercise or take some supplements? It's not like that. It is cancer of the mind. Like, so for example, it has been shown in studies and scans and stuff that bipolar, any level of bipolar, cyclothymia, bipolar 2 or bipolar 1, it is impaired functioning in the frontal lobes and limbic system of the brain. So it actually, like, very truly is like the frontal lobes and limbic system don't function like they would for a normal human. And what proper medication does, if you're properly diagnosed and properly prescribed medication, is that it balances out the hormones in the brain, not just the brain, but like the hormones and chemicals in your brain and stuff. It balances that out. And it sort of levels out your brain to where it should be on a normal level, to where you can function as a human and not want to fucking die and stuff, in comparison to without it, where you are very seriously sick. Like I honestly believe that many people are just have like basic depression, which I don't at all like condone medicating. Like if you need a bridge to get out of your depression, like by all means medicate it. But a lot of people are misdiagnosed with like disorders and stuff, in my opinion, based on what I've seen and what I've known of people and learned in school, and just prescribed medication, like just for the, you know what I mean, for people to make money. But I feel like if you truly believe you have that fucking illness and imbalance, which a doctor should be able to tell you, like, that's what I'm saying. This is such a little complicated thing, but like it's very important to look up the doctors that you're seeing and stuff. And like medication is not a horrible thing. It's just like if somebody, and I might get shit on this for like comparing it to cancer, but it's just like if somebody had cancer, would you say like just fucking exercise and take some supplements and don't get chemo? You know what I mean? Like just because mental illness isn't physically visible, does not mean it isn't there. It is very much an illness, and not a lot of people know that these days. It's very new.
Well, and I'm gonna call you out on something. I feel that a lot of people view medication as the devil, quote unquote, because yeah, they just view it as like it's, you know, it's an old fashioned stigma that's attached to it. But also, and I know you've dealt with this yourself.
Yes.
There is self medication. So many people self medicate and drink, do coke, smoke weed, and turn that into a crutch.
Oh yeah, totally. And totally. I had my period that you know of time where I was really heavily into cocaine. That was my addiction at the time. And even now still I drink, probably more than I should. Like I'm a little more functional now. But yes, absolutely, people still have their crutches, but I don't think that should rule out getting treatment, like proper treatment and medication.
And I think that too many people,
I'll admit I shouldn't be drinking on my medication, but like still it levels me out better, honestly better than if I was drinking off my medication.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is so many people just assume that, well, I could go on meds and I could go talk to somebody, or I could just, if I get up and I'm happy all the time and I'm always on blow, like I have an ex-girlfriend who she would just she was convinced that she was a better person.
Exactly. And oftentimes, so with substance abuse, like cocaine, what cocaine is that people already fucking know this, I don't need to explain it, but it increases the production of dopamine and serotonin in the brain. And the thing about cocaine, as opposed to proper medication like SSRIs, like serotonin reuptake inhibitors, is that you crash from it. So when you come down off of cocaine, when you wake up the next day, your serotonin is way the fuck down here, when normally on an average day, if you're mentally ill, would at least be up here. And on an average day to somebody who's like has a normal chemical balance is up here. And when you're on treatment with medication, it should be up here. But self-medicating with cocaine, like, and I don't judge it by any means, because like I said, I've been there. But it does that. It increases the production of dopamine and serotonin, and then just the next day, you absolutely crash harder than you would if you were on antidepressants.
And that's the thing. Like, I always view it as a house. Like, when you self-medicate and you use coke or even H users and spikers and things and tweakers, when you crash, you're in the basement.
Exactly. You're at rock fucking bottom. Like, you're at rock bottom.
Yeah, and there's just that roller coaster of up and down, just trying to get back to the main floor. And I think that's, unfortunately, for most people who don't seek treatment, and I see this a lot in especially in veterans, the reason they don't seek treatment is they assume that, well, I can self-medicate and I'm fine. I don't need somebody to tell me. Because they don't know. The education still, it's 2020, and we still don't have the proper propaganda out there to explain what mental health, like, everyone's like, oh, it's a serious issue, but nobody, unless you deal with it yourself or have a family member or somebody you love dealing with it, you don't understand it. I don't give a fuck who you are. If you don't witness it yourself, you have zero understanding. You have no opinion. You should have.
Exactly.
And it's blowing my mind that, I don't know, I applaud you personally for being a person who always go out of your way to say, when I'm having a down day. And there have been those moments you're like, look, I'm sorry I'm not posting, or I'm sorry I'm not responding. I'm having a shit day.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, because you're not being silent about it. And as much as, like, people say you catch shit for not posting about the protests and the riots and things and not using your format, you can't really say that you don't speak up when you're constantly being that real. I mean, Christ, the message you sent me the other night, sorry I didn't message you back, a friend of ours was in jail. It doesn't get more real than that.
Yeah, it really doesn't, dude.
Yeah, so
I
guess I just look at that, and too many people have that misinformation. So I'm really glad you plugged a couple of sites. And the beauty of this whole thing is that we've talked about these things a couple of times, and this one flowed a lot better, for one, and I feel like we really got a lot out of more information. I do really look forward to being able to do a follow-up interview with you in a few months when the world's, I mean, hopefully I'll be able to, because like I said, I was actually supposed to be meeting you in person here a month ago. I was supposed to be out there, but it is what it is. Go ahead and...
I also want to kind of put a message out there too. Sorry to interrupt you. That for anyone watching this, I am by no means trying to come off as like a doctor or anything. Everything that I've said is just based on what I've learned in school and how I personally feel and what I've done based on my own personal research. I am by no means trying to come off as a doctor, and do not straight up like try to make any decisions based on what I've said. Just sort of like do your own fucking research. Anyways, I don't want anyone to be like, oh, I did this because of what you talked about and it fucked me up. Like, I just had to get that out there.
But at the same time, you don't go to the first mechanic you see on the road. You go look up good mechanics. You go look up Yelp reviews. You talk to your friends.
Licensed people.
Yeah. But you still you'll still take a recommendation, though. If your friend got their car fixed for a good price, you do. This is the same thing, but way more serious. It's totally okay to look at situations like, and I mean, if you were somebody that did have cancer, or somebody who was HIV positive, or anything of these, you speak from experience.
Yes.
That goes a long fucking way.
Yeah.
And
honestly, the best decision I ever fucking made in my entire life was getting on medication. And, like, mind you, it was a process to get to the right meds that fit me, because you don't know right away. You don't know. When you're first diagnosed with stuff, different medications work for different people and different brain chemistry. So just because you start a medication and it doesn't work doesn't mean you give up and that you don't need medication. You're just permanently fucked. It just means you haven't found the right one, and you need to have patience. Like it was quite a process, honestly, to find the right medications that worked for me. But still, seeking treatment was the best decision. Was the best decision. But the best decision I ever made for myself.
Well, and like I say, I think that matters more because there are so many people that don't understand that. They're scared.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not something. You're absolutely right. I mean, I'm glad you said that. The idea of what have you got to lose?
Yeah, exactly.
I know when I hit rock bottom, it's...
You're already at rock bottom. Don't tell me about how much you should kill yourself when you haven't even fucking tried to reach treatment.
Yeah.
When you understand the thought process, I understand rock bottom, I've been there. But do not tell me about how much you should be dead if you have not even fucking tried to get treatment.
There you go. That's...
Like, I get it. I get what it's like to feel there. But, like, fucking try, for God's sake.
Yeah.
What do you have to lose? Sorry, I'm getting really passionate about this with my fucking White Claw. Like,
yeah, no. Well, the thing is, this is something you should be passionate about. I mean, right? Shouldn't you? Okay, if you have an opinion, if you have something that you really believe in, if you're not passionate about it, then do you really own that opinion?
Exactly. That's what I concur there. Absolutely. Like, people can shit on me for whatever they want as far as what I've said in this interview. And they can shit on me especially hard for what I've said about mental illness, but I will absolutely stand by what I've said in regards to mental illness. Absolutely. I know my shit. And Lord knows I do have much more to learn. But I do know in regards to mental illness, I do very much know my shit. Like, so people can't even give me shit for anything I've said on here.
Yeah.
In regards to that, I stand by it.
Are any of your articles still available to read anywhere?
I'm like, hang on, man. Hell yeah, brother. But, yes, I do have articles still available. I don't know the links to any of the ones that were on, like, websites anymore, like Elite Daily or Psychology Today. I don't have those fucking links anymore. But I do have almost every article I've saved on a WordPress that I still have the link to. I just don't promote it because I created the WordPress back when I was misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And the entire WordPress is titled Life and Times of a Borderline. And so I don't promote it much anymore because not that borderline personality disorder is at all a bad thing. It's just it's not my true diagnosis. So I don't want people to think whatever I'm saying is based on that.
Yeah, it's misinformation. So
exactly promote my website anymore, and I don't remember the login info, so I can't get in there to fucking change it. But yes, I do have still have my articles, and if anybody wants a link to it, they can reach out to me on Instagram.
Okay. Well, go ahead and plug your Instagram. I want you to do that right now.
You're like, yes, I want you to do that right now. We got this. My Instagram is I'm feeling this, dude. Crop that whole section out. Shit. My Instagram is at Saint Sasha, but there's 2 A's at the end of Sasha, so it's SAINTSASHAA.
Okay, and then you do have the backup account still, I believe.
It's all my fucking bullshit.
Yeah, no, it's good. So, and because I did this last time and I really liked it, what are you listening to? Like, what's a song you can't live without right now?
Oh my god, it's still the one I told you last time. I have that shit on repeat. It's called Sick by Salem. SICK by the band Salem. And it's like, yeah, the genre that I discovered it is called Witch House. And it's like a little different, but it's very much kind of like, I wouldn't say hip hop, but kind of like rap to like house music. I don't know. It's really fucking good. You've heard it.
Yeah, I have. I love the shit, and that's the beauty of this. Yeah. And I was honestly, it's funny because while I was working on stuff, I started listening to more artists in that genre, and it started affecting some of the things. I listen to music while I edit.
It's really good too, but now they changed their band name to TR/ST.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know them?
Yes.
Yeah, it's such a good band. Candy Walls is my favorite song. But anyways.
So cool. Well, I I can't thank you enough for rescheduling and doing all this over again. And it actually,
anytime. Thank you. I love talking to you.
I'm really enjoying the fact that most of this has been like really fantastic and worked really well. One of these days I'm gonna post a picture of how the hell I do this, and people go, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" But it's the most low tech, high tech way to do what we do. I'm looking forward to things. Hang on for a minute because I want to actually say goodbye when it's not on camera and being recorded. But
yeah, sure.
Absolutely, thank you so much, and we'll talk again soon. Okay.
Hell yeah.